So we've reached the near end of the course, and our last topic of discussion will be social psychology. I'm going to start with some basics in social thinking and then turn to some very interesting studies in Module 43 that talk about obedience, conformity, and the Stanford Prison Experiment, which is just an amazing and very unethical study that was done in the 70s. So we'll start with social thinking in Module 42. So social thinking really revolves around attribution theory, and attribution is a conclusion about the cause of an observed behavior and event. So if something happens, you need an explanation. The explanation is the attribution. We explain other people's behaviors with two types of attributions. We have situational attributions. This means that factors outside the person, the factors being the immediate environment that the person is in, affects the behavior. So this is not to do with who they are as a person. This is external factors, situational attributions. And then we have dispositional attributions, which is personality. Someone's stable personality traits influence or lead to a particular behavior. So whenever an action occurs, it's either situationally caused or dispositionally caused. Now, in Western cultures, we have something called individualism. So the United States and Western Europe are pretty much Western cultures. We tend to be individualistic. That means that we define ourselves in terms of what we do, who we are, what we have. It all focuses around I. I work here. I have this. I like this. We're in a very I culture. I think it's a self-centered, self-driven culture that we're interested in just what we have. We define our lives in terms of what we do, what we have, what we like. In Eastern cultures, which is primarily Asian cultures, they define the world in terms of the group, we. They have what is called the collectivist cultures. They define all behaviors in terms of what's good for the group rather than what's good for the individual. Now, in Western cultures, we tend to make something called the fundamental attribution error. That means when deciding how to attribute someone's behavior, we over-rely on dispositional attributions and we under-rely on situational attributions. So we blame a person's personality or stable characteristics as the cause of a behavior rather than the situational factors that are happening in that person's life. So for example, you notice the new guy tripping and stumbling as he walked in, and you say, how clumsy can you be? Does he never watch where he's going? Look at this fool, falling all over himself as he walks in. What's wrong with him? Well, that's a dispositional attribution. You're attributing his falling to him being clumsy. It's his personality. It's a stable trait versus the situation. Something about the rug that he walked on or the carpet or something was on the ground that he tripped on. Now, the next day, you walk in the same room on the same carpet and you trip. So now you don't say, well, I'm clumsy, I'm a fool, what am I doing? You say, hey, they need to fix this rug. I tripped on the way in. It's the rug's fault. So you are making a situational attribution for your own clumsiness, but you're making a dispositional attribution for another person's clumsiness, saying, well, they're a clumsy person. What's wrong with them? And this is what people in Western cultures do. They commit this fundamental attribution error. They over-rely on dispositional attributions for other people, and they under-rely on dispositional attributions for their own errors. Right? So they say it's the person's behavior is caused by their personality. They're clumsy, versus there's something wrong with the rug. But for yourself, you say the opposite. It's the rug, not me. And you see this over and over again. This is the fundamental attribution error. We go too far to assume that a person's behavior is caused by their personality. And we do this all the time in Western cultures, including the United States. We do not do this in Eastern cultures, in collectivist cultures. That doesn't happen. Mainly because our society is all centered around us. I have this, I am this. And the other society, collectivist societies, are centered around we. So there's a different way of looking at people's behavior. Now we have this also, if someone fails, you say, wow, they're so stupid. What an idiot. You don't think that, wow, this person maybe was sick, or this person didn't have time because they're working 2 or 3 jobs. Those are situational attributions. That they're sick, or they're busy with their family, or they're, someone else in their family is sick, or they're working too much, they can't sleep. And so they struggle and they fail, and you say that person's stupid. You're looking at the person, you're making a dispositional attribution, they're stupid, versus a situational attribution, that they're sick, or they're working too many jobs, too many hours at work, they didn't sleep, they're caring for someone that's sick. Those are all legitimate reasons. But here in individual cultures like the United States, we don't make those reasons. We just say that person's stupid. But then when we fail, we don't necessarily say, wow, I am so stupid, I don't belong in college. We say, oh, well, I couldn't sleep that night, or my significant other was bothering me, or I had to go do something, or I was at work all day, I didn't have time to study, right? You're making situational attributions for your own actions, for your own failures, but you make dispositional attributions for other people's failures. And we're good at that in this very selfish culture that we live in, this individualist culture in the United States. So in this country, we tend to overemphasize dispositional attributions and underemphasize situational attributions, and therefore we commit the fundamental attribution error. And self versus others actions, this is what I basically just went through, that we blame the situations for our own failures, but we blame the person's disposition for other people's failures, right? They're stupid, but we're not, when we fail a test. But when we succeed, we take all the credit. Wow, I'm so smart. I really studied hard. I deserve this grade. I deserve the A. Wow, I'm more talented than I thought. I'm smarter than I thought I was. We're taking credit for our successes. We blame the situation on our failures, but we take personal success on our, for our, we take the personal success for when we do well. It's all us. You see this with athletes. A lot of athletes, they stand there and they pose like, like they are so wonderful. Like they look up at the crowd and they pose like, wow, I'm so amazing. Check me out. A lot of times it's, it's not giving credit to all the other people or the situation that made it happen. It's taking the credit yourself. I mean, for instance, when the Hall of Fame baseball player Rickey Henderson broke the stolen base record, he took the base and he lifted it over his head and he said, I am the greatest of all time. Right? He took the entire success for, I'm the greatest. I deserve the fanfare. I deserve the glory. It wasn't like, I'd like to share this accomplishment with people. No, I'm the greatest. And you see that in our culture a lot of times. People just think they are the greatest. But when they screw up, it's not their fault. It's somebody else's fault, some situational fault. It's not their fault. They didn't do it. And then it's not just selfishness, although some of it's selfishness. It's just very easy for us to do it. We even do it for people we know and people we like. We blame their failures on the environment rather than on them. It's just a way of sort of working about in this world, in our culture. This is how we behave. Now, people in collectivist cultures, it's a completely different story. In the collectivist culture, they emphasize group unity, allegiance, and purpose over the individual. These are mainly Asian cultures. They do the opposite. So when the behavior of others is attributed to the situation, so when someone screws up, you don't say they're stupid. You would You say, well, they're just very stressed, or family life is hard, or they didn't sleep, or they didn't have time to study because they worked. So you're doing the opposite of what you do in American individualist cultures. And credit for their success goes to others. So they don't stand there and say, I am the greatest. They don't say, wow, I'm so smart. I'm really talented. I'm a genius. You don't hear that. You hear about all the other people that helped them along the way. They give credit to the family, to those around them, to the group. And when they fail, they do the opposite of Americans as well. They blame all failure on themselves. They take it personally, that they have let down their group. I've let down my family. I've let down my friends. I've let down my significant other. They take all the blame. Whereas Americans, it's never their fault. So it's interesting how individualist American culture differs from Eastern collectivist cultures. It's completely opposite. And that's why you see family play a bigger role in collectivist cultures. Family is more important. Credit is given to the family. Blame is taken on oneself to stop the blame from being directed to other family members or other people around them. They'd rather just take the blame and not have it spread out or spread over other people. Family is very important in collectivist cultures. In American culture, individual society, family is not important. It's like, get away from your family. Move away from them as fast as you can. Be on your own. Be an individual. Accomplish things on your own. So that you have money, you have wealth, you have status. For you. Live for your own glory. That's capitalism. Accumulate the most for yourself in life. That's seen as success. And even get you to become president someday. In some cases. You've collected everything. What more can I get? Whereas in a collectivist culture, I need my family. My family's important. My family contributes to my success. What I do is to make my family proud. You don't hear those words too much unless you're coming from a collective society to move to America. Maybe you retain that culture. But people born in this country, and their parents are born in this country, so multiple generations, you don't hear that. You hear about go out and get a good job, make money, gain possessions. What kind of car do you drive? What kind of house do you have? Those are the important things in this individualist culture. Now, this way of making dispositions plays a role in how you react in case there's a problem. For example, you're driving on the road, and I'm sure this has happened to me multiple times, and a car cuts in front of you. How do you react? Well, it depends on what kind of disposition you make. I mean, not disposition, attribution, I should say. If you make a situational attribution, maybe the driver is ill, or maybe the driver had to take an emergency phone call. Maybe the driver didn't get their morning cup of coffee. You slow down, and you're patient. If you make a dispositional attribution, you say, wow, this is a crazy driver. Now you get upset. You become more aggressive. You start yelling, and you get road rage. Now you're really upset. Now it's, the roll down your window time. When you're mad at somebody and you try to catch up to them on the road and you pass them and you you look out your window at them like, what's wrong with this person? You look at them and you just stare at them and you're like, wow, you're crazy. And sometimes you even roll down the window and you say something to them. That's not a good idea. But that frustration, the anger on your face, like, you're so crazy, and that may be followed by some non-choice words, right? That makes you more aggressive on the road because you're angry at them. You made a dispositional attribution. You said this person is crazy, they don't know how to drive, or what's wrong with them, and you get more angry, and then it can escalate to road rage. And road rage can get serious. I mean, you get people killing each other over road rage. So you want to make sure you try to make a situational attribution rather than the dispositional attribution, so you don't escalate things. If you make the situational attribution, you have a tolerant reaction. You proceed cautiously. If you make that dispositional attribution, you have an unfavorable reaction, road rage. Not good. I've been there many times where, like, I'm on my way to work, someone's going really slow. I make that dispositional attribution. I drive and catch up with them. I roll down my window, and they turn into, they're going so slow in front of me. It's driving me crazy. I'm going to be late for the train, and they're going to like eat breakfast. They turn into like a diner to get breakfast, and I'm driving to the train station, and I roll down my window, and I'm like, you may not have nothing to do with your life, but I have to get to work, and I'm clearly agitated, and it's an elderly person, and it's stupid reaction. But when you're like under time pressure and the train's going to leave without you, and once that train leaves, you got to wait a whole another hour to get the next train, and you're going to be late for everything. You get upset. You make that dispositional attribution, and you start getting angry at that person, and it can, in some circumstances, turn out to be very dangerous situation. Where people end up getting into serious arguments, and they go to their car, they grab their gun, and that's it. People get killed. So you want to try to react with a situational attribution if at all possible, because that leads to a more tolerant reaction. There's even political effects on attribution. So when you see someone who's in dirty clothes asking for money, what do we make how do we assume, that why they're there? What kind of assumption do we make? So you see a homeless person, they're asking for money. Some of us, give money. Some of us don't give money because you're afraid they're going to spend it on alcohol or drugs. Sometimes you give money in certain situations and not others. You know that there's some people out there that are scamming. There was that situation where the people were bringing small children and babies there and sitting collecting money. Lord, look at my young child. I need money to take care of my child. And it turned out to be a scam. But you also know that there are some people that generally are poor, homeless, and need money, and you'd be helping them out. So now you have to make a decision. How do you make that decision? So do we say that, homeless people maybe are too lazy or too incompetent? If I give them money, I'm not encouraging them to improve their situation. Go get a job like me. I'm killing myself at work to make whatever money I need to live, and you're sitting on your ass collecting money from other people. Do you say that? Do you say that that person who's homeless maybe lost their home to a medical bill? They got sick and they couldn't pay their finances off, and now they ended up on the street. And now they're in no condition to compete for the few jobs that are available. Well, if you look at the first one, it's a dispositional attribution. They're lazy or incompetent. If you look at the second reason, it's a situational attribution. So what kind of attribution do you make? You also have, mental illness, like schizophrenia. Schizophrenics often end up homeless. So maybe it's a mental illness that led to this situation. And they're not lazy, they're just mentally ill. So it's hard to make the determination. People get frustrated. They think it's a scam. Or they think the people are lazy. But it could be like a legitimate reason. So do you make the dispositional or the situational attribution? And that really determines how you feel about the situation. Attitudes and actions. We're defining attitude as feelings, ideas, and beliefs that affect how we react to others and to other events. So attitudes affect our actions. How we feel about something affects what we do. We also see later on in the next module that actions can affect our attitudes as well. So we always think that our attitude affects our actions, but our actions can actually change our original attitudes too, under the right situations. One way to change your attitude is through persuasion. And there's two pathways that affects attitudes. two ways to persuade someone. The first one is the central route to persuasion. This is being rational with someone, making a rational argument, providing logical evidence and details and data. So my product has been proven to be more effective. We conducted these studies and we found that people that took my product did 25% better than people that took a placebo. You're using logic, you're using data to present evidence, and you're trying to make a rational argument to that person. And for like scientists like me, that works really well. That works the best. You know, give me the data, give me the evidence, make a logical argument, and maybe you'll convince me. So I work through the central route of persuasion. But I am not like many other people in the world. Many other people in the world don't care about data. They work through the peripheral route of persuasion. So you want to appeal to their fears, to their desires, right? So people that take my product, I'm not going to give you the data. I just know that they're very happy. Look at this person smiling. They bought my product and they're smiling and they're having the best time of their life. That's the peripheral route. Take this, it'll make you happy. Take this, it'll make you feel better. Take this, you know, your life will change. You know, this expert recommends it, right? These people will all be your friends if you take my product. That's a peripheral route. So you're not looking at evidence. You're not looking at a rational argument. You're looking at an association with positive, happy things, desirable things. So a good example is beer. So you watch those beer commercials, and I'm still looking for the central route of persuasion through the beer commercial, where I can say, wow, that beer is, you know, it has X% of more of these ingredients. It has the finest quality hops in this beer, right? It was made with the purest ingredients. The ingredients were 20% purer than the competitor's ingredients, and the taste is this percent better. And so you rationally lay out the argument and you give me evidence, you give me percentages, and I say, wow, I'm going to take that beer does sound good. You know, it does sound like you have the quality ingredients for the beer, and therefore it's got to be better. Right? I've never seen a beer commercial like this, arguing logically for why you should choose their beer. What I see is a beer commercial with a regular guy and a whole group of his fantasy women. You know, and he's partying on the beach, and, you know, he's living the dream. You know, he doesn't want to open his eyes because he thinks that the dream will end. He's having the time of his life because he just drank beer X. Right? Now, beer X could be utter crap. It probably is many times. But you're not looking to argue logically in favor of drinking beer X. You're looking to go the peripheral route and associate beer X with women, fun, the best time of your life, and you think that this is the way to persuade someone. And most of the time you're correct if you think that way. Because most people that are watching sporting events where the beer commercials are on are not looking to do a firm analysis, statistical analysis on the benefit of drinking this beer and how it's significantly different in terms of quality to any other beer on the market. No. These people, they want to have fun. They want to relax. They want to enjoy their life. They want to have a happy life. They want to have women, for the most part. Right? This is all these things they seem desirable. Good times, fun, women, best time of my life. They want to think this is all possible. So you market towards those people. Or you have a Dos Equis commercial where you have the most interesting man in the world. If you drink Dos Equis, you become the most interesting man in the world. You go to Colombia for your morning coffee. I mean, those are really entertaining commercials. You're associating this high lifestyle, this sophistication with the product, with that beer. You're making an association. You're once again going through the peripheral route. So many times you see commercials out there, they pay millions of dollars to advertise, especially during the Super Bowl, right? they're out there to persuade you to go the peripheral route, to associate their product with all these great things that you wanted out of life. And it seems that that route can be more effective than just arguing logically to people that are not really interested in logic. They're interested in having a good time. So, when do attitudes affect our actions? Well, when external influences are minimal. So, let's say that you're looking at eating at McDonald's. So, I feel like my attitude is I really want to. I feel like eating at McDonald's. That's your action, eating at McDonald's. So, if external influences are minimal, that means there's no nutritionist telling me don't eat at a McDonald's because it's 2,000 calories for this meal and it's 75 grams of of fat and like 30 grams of saturated fat and it's gonna clog your arteries and kill you. Well, probably you don't want to hear that. So if there's no one shouting that into you, no respected people like doctors, your cardiologist isn't there, like checking your heart before you eat your Big Mac meal, and the nutritionist isn't there, you're gonna eat it. Those external influences are minimal. So no one's telling me not to do it. I really want to do it. So screw the calories. I'm just going to eat it. I want that Big Mac or whatever you like at McDonald's. The attitude is stable. So let's say you enjoyed their food for quite a while, right? So you've always liked McDonald's. You still like it. Therefore, I'm going to still eat it. The attitude is specific to the behavior. So it's really easy to get the food when I have a craving. I just walk down the street. If you come to BMCC, you walk down Chambers Street, or you walk up, you walk up Chambers Street to the corner. Where do you have the Golden Arches? And that place is packed. Everybody eats there. So many students eat there. So it's very easy to access when you have a craving. And the last one is the attitude is easily recalled. And so you think back to how good McDonald's was when you see the sign every day. So that's fresh in your memory as how good that Big Mac is. That you love that Big Mac and you could just remember all the joyous times with your Big Mac. So if you have all four of these, influences, you're more likely to carry through. Now we just talked about how attitudes affects actions. Now we're going to look at the reverse. How do actions affect attitudes? It can happen under certain situations, and here's one way that's a very easy way to have actions build on your attitudes. The most common way is the foot in the door phenomenon. So this is doing a small action, and then asking bigger and bigger actions further on. The second way is role playing. So if you play a role, then you start to adapt the attitudes of that role. And the final way is a little more complicated, called cognitive dissonance, which we'll talk about at the end. So the foot in the door phenomenon is when you give a small compliance and that leads to a larger compliance later on. For example, a political campaigner asks you if you would open the door just enough to pass a clipboard through, or a foot. That's why it's called foot in the door. You agree to this and you get the clipboard. You sign the petition. The next time they come back and they say, they knock on your door and they said, you already signed the petition, so we're asking you to make a very small contribution, a couple of dollars. So you sign the petition and you say, oh, okay, I signed the petition. I have a couple of dollars for you. What happens next? They come back next time, they're asking for more and more and more, and then you can't get rid of them. So just by doing a very small deed, agreeing to open the door and let them pass you the clipboard and sign the clipboard in favor of whatever candidate that they're supporting, now they can come back and ask you to do a little more each time, and they can gradually get you to increase your contribution, increase your the amount of stake you have in this candidate. This is the foot in the door phenomenon. The tendency to be more likely to agree to a larger request after agreeing to a small one. So people adjust their attitudes. Once they start doing a small action, they adjust their attitudes more in line with that action. And when they adjust their attitudes, they're more likely to do a bigger action later on because their attitude has already been adjusted. So you very gradually creep in and ask them to make more and more of a sacrifice. And then at the end, they're a major donator or they're playing a major role in the campaign. Foot in the door phenomenon. Role playing also affects attitudes. So Hawthorne said, "No man for any considerable period can wear one face to himself and another to the multitude without finally getting bewildered as to which may be the true face." Or fake it until you make it. So you pretend to do something, that's going to affect your attitude. You're going to be more in favor of it later on. If you pretend to be someone, you're going to adopt the attitude of that person that you're playing. This is what actors do a lot of times. They, to get ready for a particular role in a movie, they'll play that role in real life. They'll stay in character even when they're off the set. So even when they go home, they stay in character. Even when they're eating breakfast or lunch or dinner, they stay in character. Because the longer they stay in character, the more they can feel the character. The better they are at being that character on stage. And they feel if they abandon the character and they go back to being who they are, then it's harder for them to get back in character, later when they have to perform. So when you adopt the role, you adopt the attitude of the role. You see this with arranged marriages. Two people that don't love each other at the beginning. They get married. They're like strangers. Maybe the families know them to a degree, but they don't know each other many times. They're not in love. They get married. What happens over the long run is after getting married, they learn to like, and in some cases, they learn to actually love each other. They've adopted that attitude by playing the role of husband and wife. Now, today's youth rejects the idea of arranged marriages, but arranged marriages are successful. Divorce rates in arranged marriages are no greater than the divorce rates in regular marriages around the world. So the idea of you're playing the role of husband and wife may lead you to actually become husband and wife. Actors, of course, they say they lose themselves in roles. They become that person. You saw it also in the Stanford prison. You haven't seen it yet. You will see the Stanford prison study, where students were randomly assigned to the roles of guards or prisoners, and the guards started demeaning the prisoners, and the prisoners started hating and rebelling against the guards. They took that role, and that role shaped their behavior. And cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is a little bit more complicated, but it definitely shapes your attitudes through your behaviors. So cognitive dissonance is a tension state that occurs when our actions are not in harmony with our attitudes. So our actions and our attitudes don't line up. According to cognitive dissonance theory, we resolve this tension state, this dissonance, by either changing our attitudes or changing our actions. And it's much easier to change your attitude than change your action. So Leon Festinger is the guy that came up with the idea of cognitive dissonance theory. And in his original study, he paid students either a large or small amount to express enjoyment, amount of money that is, to express enjoyment of a boring activity. And then he looked at how they actually enjoyed this boring activity. If he paid them a large amount of money to express enjoyment of this activity, they didn't shift their attitude. They said, I said I enjoyed it because he gave me a lot of money. That's not how I really feel. I was given a lot of money to do it, so I don't really believe in it. However, if they were given a small amount of money, they said, why would I do this for such a small amount of money, for like $1? Why would I do this for $1 unless I really did believe it? So maybe the activity is not so boring, because there's no way I would do this for such a small amount of money. So it must be kind of interesting. And the reason that the people with a small amount of money, they were given a small amount of money, changed their attitude was they had no external justification for why they said that the activity was enjoying. The people that got a large amount of money had external justification. They said, I was given all this money to do this, so I think it's boring, but you paid me. So of course I'm going to say it's interesting. So they had external justification to say it's interesting. They got a lot of money. The people that got $1 did not have sufficient external justification. And therefore why would I say this is enjoyable for $1? It doesn't make any sense. It's $1. It's not a lot of money. Therefore it must really be more enjoyable than I originally thought. Lack of external justification leads to the attitude change. So you resolve this tension state by either changing the behavior or the attitude. In this case, they resolve the cognitive dissonance state by changing their attitude, but only if they were not given sufficient external justification. Similar thing is smoking. If you're a smoker, people say, smoking is bad for you. Smoking kills you. Smoking leads to cancer, lung disease, heart attack, stroke. They hear this all the time. Smokers hear all the time how bad you're killing yourself. It's terrible for you. And it really is terrible for you. I mean, that's not overhyped. Smoking is terrible for you. But smokers now face a dissonance state, a state of cognitive dissonance. They know that smoking is terrible for them. It's probably killing them. But yet they continue to smoke. Those two that action and that cognition, the smoking, I continue to smoke, and the cognition, smoking is killing me, is very dangerous for me. Those are in conflict. They don't correspond. That creates cognitive dissonance, the tension state. And now you have to resolve that cognitive dissonance by either changing the attitude or the action. Well, what's easier for a smoker to change? Smoker's not like, wow, you really convinced me. Smoking is killing me? Okay, I'm going to quit smoking. When does that happen? That almost never happens, especially among longtime smokers. People smoking a pack a day, 2 packs a day for 30, 40, 50 years of their life, and you tell them smoking is killing you, it's going to kill your body, give you cancer and all that. They're not going to say, oh, you're right, let me stop smoking. That almost never happens. So they almost never change their action. What's easier to change is the attitude. And the attitude is, well, smoking is going to kill me, but, and you always have that but in there, but my friend smoked his entire life or her entire life and she was fine. She lived to the age of 90. But this evidence is overrated. There are plenty of smokers that don't get cancer, that don't get sick. So they're actually changing their attitude about smoking by rejecting the idea that smoking kills you, by qualifying it with, but I know all these people that smoked and they're still alive and okay. So they are rationalizing. And human beings are not rational, not logical. They are rationalizing creatures. And that's what happens with a lot of smokers. They change their attitude to make it like smoking isn't as bad as everyone makes it out to be. And that allows them, that resolves the dissonance, and that allows them to keep smoking. And this is an example of cognitive dissonance at work. So the last example of cognitive dissonance is Fiona, a college student. Now, her attitude is that the tuition at the college is way too high. That's her original attitude. Now, if Fiona agrees to do some fundraising for her college, her attitudes about school finances might shift to resolve this cognitive dissonance. So they ask Fiona to go out there to these new students and make a speech about how they need to contribute because they need to offset the cost of tuition. The school needs more money. You really need to help the school out. Now, that's opposite of what she originally believed. She originally believed the tuition is too high, not that the school really needs the money. She thought the school was greedy, not that the school really needs the finances. And now she has to go in front of all these new students and try to convince them to donate money to the school voluntarily because the school really needs the money. That behavior, going out and making this fundraising pitch to new students, is opposite of her attitude, that the tuition is too high. The tuition is too high. Why am I asking students to give more money? The school needs the money, right? She didn't believe that. Now she's asked to do this. So her action and her attitude are conflicting. That creates cognitive dissonance, tension state. How does she resolve the dissonance? She shifts her attitude towards the school, in favor of the school. Well, maybe the school has a point, maybe they need more money because of the escalating costs of X, Y, and Z. You should, maybe they really do need to raise the tuition. Maybe this is not a greed maneuver on their part. It's not just greed. Maybe they actually do have escalating costs that they have to take care of. And now her attitude has changed from the tuition is too high to, well, I accept that the school needs to raise tuition because of various costs. And here her attitude changed because of cognitive dissonance. And we'll continue with other social phenomenon in the next module.